it. You look at the most collected athlete of 2025, according to PSA cards graded, meaning these cards get submitted to be graded and given a score so that their value is determined. One thing that's incredible about it is that Michael Jordan, these are basketball players, is still on top.
That Magic Bird and Jordan comparison isn't just hyperbole. It's actually the most accurate framework we have for understanding what's happening right now. Magic and Bird saved the NBA in the 80s, when the league was struggling. Tape-delayed finals and all. Then, Jordan took that foundation and built something that transcended sports entirely. He became a global cultural icon. And here's what people miss when they push back against the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Nobody goes back now and says Michael Jordan got too much credit. Nobody argues that the praise should have gone to Pistol Pete Maravich or Bob Cousy instead. That would sound ridiculous today. But in real time, during Jordan's rise, there were absolutely people making those arguments. There were purists who felt the older generation wasn't getting
Bird all rolled in one because Magic and Bird got the NBA off tape delay, and then Jordan, took it from there and reached rarefied air, obviously. But for Caitlin Clark to be above all those other players is another sign of the cultural phenomenon that she's become
getting enough respect. The difference is, time proved Jordan's impact was real and measurable, and that's exactly what we're watching unfold with Clark. Let's break down what PSA President Ryan Hodge actually said, because the specifics here matter. Over 36,000 Caitlin Clark cards have been graded. That's more than LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Anthony Edwards combined. Read that again. Combined. We're talking about a player who just finished her rookie WNBA season, and her card submissions exceed 3 of the biggest names in basketball when you add them all together. And this data is from 20. So this surge happened during a period when Clark was dealing with an eye injury that kept her out of action. There was no dip in collector interest. If anything, it intensified. She holds 3 of the top 10 most graded cards this year. 3 separate Clark cards are in that elite group. Hodge called it the kind of momentum in the hobby only seen from the most elite athletes. That's not marketing speak. That's a business executive looking at hard data and recognizing something
context to what I just showed you. There's a quote in here from PSA President Ryan Hodge. Professional Sports Authenticator revealed Clark is the most collected active basketball player with over 136,000 cards graded. That's more than LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Anthony Edwards combined. So that's pretty wild. And, especially because this is 2025, not 2024 also. So this is this is in the midst of Caitlin Clark's injury year. There's no dip there. Clark holds 3 of the top 10 most graded cards this year.
Extraordinary is happening. The card collecting world is fascinating because it operates on a completely different logic than social media discourse. When someone submits a card to PSA for grading, they're paying money for that service. They're making an investment decision based on their belief that the card will hold or increase in value over time. These aren't casual fans clicking like button. These are collectors who study the market, who understand scarcity and demand, who are betting real money on a player's long-term significance. And what they're saying collectively through their purchasing and grading decisions is that Caitlin Clark cards are the ones worth having. That's not media hype creating artificial demand. That's organic market forces driven by people who have skin in the game. The fact that this momentum started 2.5 years ago, back during her Iowa career, tells you this wasn't manufactured by the WNBA's marketing department. This was building long before she was drafted. This is where the Cody Rhodes comparison becomes really instructive for understanding what's happening with Clark. For those who don't follow wrestling, here's the context. Around WrestleMania,
enough of Caitlin Clark, he added, Clark's cards have generated record-breaking demand since entering the collectibles market 2.5 years ago. She's risen to the #1 most collected active basketball player, up from number 6 in the top 10 in 2024. This is the kind of momentum in the hobby only seen from the most elite athletes. And yeah, I mean,
40 in 2024, The Rock returned to WWE and was positioned to main event against Roman Reigns. That meant Cody Rhodes, who had been building toward that moment for 2 years, got bumped from the spot and the fans revolted. Not because WWE told them to, not because it was part of the storyline. The fans genuinely rebelled against the decision. There was a "We want Cody" movement that became so loud, so persistent, that WWE had to change their plans. They bumped The Rock, one of the biggest stars in entertainment history, and put Cody back in the main event because the organic fan support was undeniable. That's the parallel here. Caitlin Clark's connection with fans didn't come from a marketing campaign. It came from what people watched her do on the court at Iowa. The way she played, the energy she brought, the competitive fire, the logo threes, the no-look pass. Fans watched that and formed an emotional connection that was real and lasting. Let's trace this timeline because the progression matters. The buzzer beaters at Iowa started building her profile. Then came the triple-double.
Necessarily, but I did see this comment on a video yesterday I thought was worth addressing in this context. Philip, who really likes when I'm on Busted Open Radio. Great job filling in for Sam Roberts on his Sirius XM show. That's the wrestling, Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7. I would love if you could relate Caitlin's organic popularity and emotional connection to fans like Cody Rhodes has. You know, I'm actually working on something bigger picture about that, but I've said this over and over again. And for those of you who don't get the Cody Rhodes reference there, around WrestleMania 40, The Rock had returned to WWE and was going to main event WrestleMania with Roman Reigns, and in the process took Cody Rhodes' spot. But the fans weren't having it, and they rebelled. This was not part of the story. They rebelled to the point like there was a "We Want Cody" movement that
against Louisville that led into the South Carolina game. And that South Carolina matchup drew massive numbers, up over 70% from the previous year's championship game. The Big Ten was already setting viewership records for her games before that. Then, the Angel Ree moment happened. The taunt after LSU won the 2023 championship that put both players into the national consciousness in a way that transcended basketball. The next season started with the crossover at Kinnick, where Iowa played a basketball game in their football stadium that remains the highest-attended women's basketball game in history. Over 55,000 people packed into that venue. Throughout that 2023-24 season, the numbers kept climbing. The LSU rematch, the UConn game, the South Carolina semifinal, and then the national championship against South Carolina drew 18.7 million viewers. That's not a typo. Nearly 19 million people watched that game. And here's what some people thought would happen. They assumed it was a college phenomenon that wouldn't translate to the WNBA. They thought once she left Iowa, the casual fans would move on to the next thing, but that's not what happened at all. Here, the WNBA season proved the connection was real. Teams moved games to bigger arenas when the Fever came to town.
Back in it because there was so much organic fan support. And that is the deal with Caitlin Clark, right? Like we can sit here and go round and round and on a merry-go-round and on a hamster wheel of ridiculousness, and people talk about overhype or whatever the case may be, but there was a connection that she established with fans who watched her at Iowa and were wowed by the way she played and what she did and the energy she brought to the court and the way she competed and all that stuff that was growing. You know, if you look at, you can, some of the buzzer beaters, you can look at the Louisville game, the triple double, which went into the South Carolina game, and that South Carolina game was massive numbers, far exceeding the year before, like 70+% up for over the year before. The Big Ten was already setting records for her games. The Angel Reese things happened. That puts it, you know, into the national consciousness even more. The next year, the cross.
The Las Vegas Aces moved from their 12,000-seat arena to the T-Mobile Arena for a Fever game. The Washington Mystics moved to Capital One Arena. The Atlanta Dream moved to State Farm Arena. These weren't one-off publicity stunts. These were business decisions based on genuine ticket demand. The ratings told the same story. Games featuring Clark regularly drew over 1 million viewers, sometimes approaching 2 million. For context, the average WNBA game before 2024 drew around 400,000 viewers. The league's entire economic model changed in one season, and now we're watching a contentious CBA negotiation play out with players demanding a larger share of revenue. That negotiation is happening because the revenue landscape fundamentally shifted. The league went from operating at a loss, subsidized by the NBA, to becoming a potentially profitable enterprise. That doesn't happen without a massive influx of new fans and new money. The trading card data brings us full circle because cards are a tangible representation of cultural impact. When collectors decide which cards to buy, grade, and hold, they're making a statement about who they believe will matter in the long term. They're not collecting based on who had the best player efficiency rating or who won the most championships. They're collecting based on who captured the public imagination. Michael Jordan is still number one in card submissions because his impact was so profound that it echoes decades later. People who weren't even born during his playing career collect Jordan cards because they understand his historical significance. The fact that Caitlin Clark is already second on that list above legends like Kobe and active superstars like LeBron tells you something remarkable is happening. This is the kind of cultural penetration that can't be manufactured. You can't buy your way into this position. You can't marketing campaign your way there. It has to come from genuine public connection.